It was a lazy Saturday morning in Greenhaven Meadows, the kind where the hum of lawnmowers blends with kids laughing as they zip around on bikes. I was out front, trimming the rose bushes, sweat beading on my forehead under the June sun. My name's Vyd Carter, an animal welfare officer who's seen more than his share of cruelty. But nothing cold VE prepared me for what happened that day. A sharp, gut-wrenching yelp shattered the calm, like a knife slicing through the air. My heart stopped. It was Bailey, my son Ethan's Sayre VYC puppy, and the sound came from the clubhouse deck. Ethan's scream followed, raw and desperate, calling for his best friend. I dropped my shears and ran. Greenhaven Meadows looks like a postcard: shiny cars, perfect lawns, families grilling burgers on weekends. But beneath the surface, there's a tension, a quiet resentment stirred by one woman, Linda Grayson. She's the HOA president, a self-proclaimed guardian of standards with a knack for making life miserable. Her rules: grass can't be a blade too long. Mailboxes must be regulation grammar law. And she had it out for anyone who didn't fit her VY shown of perfection, especially us. Ethan, my 10-year-old, has cerebral palsy. He leans on crutches, but his spirit's brighter than the sun. Bailey, that scrappy little pup, isn't just a pet. He's Ethan's anchor, trained to steady his steps and lift his heart. Linda hated Bailey, called him a nuisance despite his Sayre VYC vest, and now she'd crossed a line I never imagined. I sprinted toward the clubhouse, nearly tripping over a sprinkler. There she was, perched on the deck 8 feet up, her blonde hair sprayed stiff, a pink sweater tied over her shoulders like she was posing for a country club photo. In her grip, Bailey squirmed, his tiny paws clawing at the air. Ethan stood below, crutches wobbling, his voice breaking as he begged her to stop. "Please, Miss Grayson, don't hurt him." Linda's lips curled into a sneer. "This much a menace," she spat. Before I could reach them, she swung her arm and tossed Bailey like he was trash. Time slowed. His small body arced through the air, hitting the rocks below with a sickening thud. Ethan collapsed, sobbing. I roared her name, but Linda just laughed a cold, jagged sound and said, "Animals don't belong here." I scrambled to Bailey, my hand shaking as I checked him. His breathing was shallow, his body trembling. Ethan crawled closer, tears streaming, whispering, "Bailey, please don't die." A few neighbors gathered, their faces pale, but Linda stood firm, arms crossed, ranting about troublemakers. I wrapped Bailey in a blanket someone handed me and carried him to our driveway, yelling for an ambulance. My training kicked in keck for bleeding, feel for breaks, but every whimper from Bailey cut me deeper. Ethan clung to his crutches, his eyes pleading for hope. I whispered, "He's tough, buddy. He'll make it," praying I wasn't lying. Linda's voice echoed, calling Bailey a filthy mutt. I wanted to charge up that deck and shake her, but I'm not just a dad, I am a professional. I've spent years tracking down animal abusers, and this was personal. Paramedics arrived, splitting up to check Ethan and stabilize Bailey. Neighbors whispered, phones out, filming. A teenage girl across the street caught every second. Linda had the nerve to complain that paramedics were on HOA land without her say-so. That was it. I flashed my badge and told her to wait for the cops. She sniffed, muttered about needing a lawyer, and stormed into the clubhouse, slamming the door. Officer Jenkins, someone I worked with before, pulled up. One look at Ethan's tear-streaked face and Bailey strapped to a stretcher, and his jaw tightened. I pointed to the deck. "Linda Grayson threw him off," I said. Jenkins shook his head, knowing a Sayre VYC dog case like this was serious. Neighbors started spilling stories: Linda's fines for ugly fences, her threats over kids' chalk drawings. But no one expected her to go this far. I told Jenkins how we'd moved here a year ago, drawn by promises of a tight-knit community. Instead, Linda targeted us, nitpicking our shutters' color or Ethan's basketball games in the driveway. She'd fixated on Bailey, claiming he barked too much, though he only yipped when Ethan laughed. Her threats never scared me until now. As paramedics loaded Bailey into the ambulance, Ethan insisted on going. I let him, promising I'd follow, then turned to Jenkins. Near the clubhouse door, I spotted a folded paper with a smudged footprint. Curiosity tugged at me. I opened it and froze. Words clipped from magazines spelled out, "Back off, or your dog's not the only one who will pay." My stomach churned. This wasn't just a tantrum someone meant to scare us, maybe hurt Ethan. I handed it to Jenkins, our eyes locking. This was premeditated. At the animal hospital, Ethan sat under harsh lights, looking small and broken. A vet tech, Sarah, updated me. Bailey had 2 cracked ribs, a fractured leg, and possible internal bruising. He might not make it through the night. Ethan's voice cracked. "Will he be okay, Dad?" I knelt, gripping his hand. The vets are the best, and Bailey's a fighter. But the weight of those words crushed me. Later, I called my colleague, Detective Patel, who's a wizard at sniffing out motives. I told him about Linda's reign of terror, the note, her hatred for Bailey. He suggested money might be driving her people do ugly things when they're desperate. He offered to dig into her finances. That night, I couldn't sleep. Bailey's empty bed stared at me. I kept seeing Linda smirk as she let him fall. By morning, the hospital said Bailey was hanging on, but Ethan couldn't sit, yet it had stressed the pup. Back home, I noticed Linda's car gone. Hiding? Lawyering up? I didn't care. Jenkins called, saying charges were pending once the vet's report came in. He urged me to collect neighbor statements and check if Linda had allies in the HOA. I met with a few folks on my porch, Jenny, whose garden gnomes Linda threatened. Tom, fined for parking in his own driveway. Everyone had a story, but we needed more. Then Patel hit gold. Linda was drowning in debt, refinancing her house repeatedly. Worse, she'd been emailing a shady developer who bought cheap properties in HOA neighborhoods. Was she pushing out undesirable families like Menito boost property values for a payout? The thought made my blood boil. If true, hurting Bailey wasn't just cruel, it was calculated. I told the neighbors, and Tom's face hardened. "We need a meeting," he said. We agreed, but we had to be smart. Linda still held HOA power, and she'd cover her tracks if we tipped her off. I spent the day gathering statements, fines for loud wind chimes, banned paint colors, even complaints about kids' hopscotch. Ethan, resting in his room, clutched a plush puppy, asking if Linda would pay. I hugged him, promising justice. That night, we met at Tom's house, poring over HOA emails. Linda had pushed for uniform house colors, tried banning unregistered pets, and limited kids' playtime, all to protect property values. It felt like she was weeding out anyone who didn't fit her perfect image. A quiet retiree, Ellen, mentioned overhearing Linda boast about making Greenhaven a premium market. That was our smoking gun. The HOA meeting loomed. I walked into the clubhouse, my pulse racing. Linda stood at the front, pink sweater pristine, flanked by her loyalists. She droned about landscaping rules, ignoring the room's tension. Residents shifted, glancing at me. I waited, letting her dig her hole. Then I stood. "I like to speak," I said, voice low but firm. I walked to the front, my anger barely leashed. I listed her abuses, fake fines, threats, targeting single parents, seniors, families like mine. I handed out Patel's documents, showing her developer emails. Gasps spread. I held up a photo of Bailey, tubes snaking from his tiny body. "This is what she did," I said, my voice breaking. "She threw my son Sarah VYC dog off that deck to keep this neighborhood perfect for profit." Linda stammered, calling a lie, but the papers didn't budge. An elderly couple teared up, realizing her fines nearly forced them out. Tom stood, citing the bylaws. We could vote her out. The room erupted, nods, murmurs, then shouts for her to go. Her face paled. She had no defense. As the vote crushed her, Jenkins walked in with another officer. "Linda Grayson," he said, "you're under arrest." The room went silent as they cuffed her felony animal cruelty, assault on a Sarah VYC dog, conspiracy to defraud. Phones flashed, her allies slinking away. She was done. Within days, the DA built a case. Neighbors testified about her fear tactics, and the developer Link unraveled a web of corruption. Bailey pulled through, his ribs healing, though he'd limp forever. Ethan VY cited daily, whispering to him through the kennel bars. The neighborhood rallied, raising money for Bailey's bills, sending Ethan cards. Greenhaven changed. Tom and Ellen took over the HOA, scrapping Linda's rules. They built a ramp on that cursed deck, adding a plaque for compassion. A scholarship fund started for kids like Ethan. When Bailey came home, neighbors lined the street, clapping softly. Ethan, grinning through his fear, knelt to hug his pup. Potlucks popped up, kids drew chalk art without worry, and Greenhaven felt like the home we'd hoped for. At Linda's trial, we packed the courthouse. I described Ethan's scream, Bailey's fall. Patel and Jenkins buried her with EVY note, emails, testimonies. She was guilty on all counts. Justice didn't erase Ethan's nightmares, but it showed him cruelty could lose. Months later, Bailey hobbled by Ethan's side, tail wagging. At a community party, kids drew "Welcome Bailey" in chalk. Tom spoke about resilience, and we laid flowers where Bailey fell, closing that dark chapter. Ethan, braver now, wants to help other kids with Sayre VYC dogs. Watching them, I know why I fight for the voiceless. Linda's greed tore us apart, but it forged a stronger community, one where kindness wins. What do you think? Did Linda deserve her fate? Or was she just a product of a broken system? Could you forgive someone who hurt your family like that? Should HOAs have this much power? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you talking.